Wonderful. Well, I think we'll get started. Welcome to Repro Revolution through the Ballot, how you can help no matter where you live. My name is Katie Ryder, and I am the National Program Coordinator for Jews for a Secular Democracy. And on behalf of Jews for a Secular Democracy, I welcome you to this. We are really excited. We have an excellent panel and moderator, and we are going to get started. I'm going to let the moderator go through the housekeeping. Tonight, we have Nomi Joyrich, who is the State of Michigan Director for JFASAD, and we are really excited. She has been doing an amazing amount of work in Michigan and really across the country. So thank you, Nomi, and it's all yours.
Terrific. Thank you so much. We're going to have basically, just to let everyone know, we're going to spend approximately 10 minutes on each state, and we'll have an opportunity to ask questions. If you have any questions, put them in the chat, and Paul Golan, our executive director, will ask them at the end. So we're basically going to go, state by state with finding out more about their campaign. I want to let you know that, as many of you know, that here in Michigan, we were able to pass the Reproductive Freedom for All ballot proposal last year, which enshrined abortion rights and reproductive freedom in the Michigan Constitution. And I see many familiar names in the chat of people from Michigan who worked very hard on that campaign, including two people who collected more signatures than any other person in the state of Michigan, which is Beata and Liz. Great to have you both here. And I know some of the people I recognize also have been driving down to Ohio to help. So we have a lot of committed activists, people who have a lot of experience with this, who are eager to find out what they can do. Jews for a Secular Democracy is a pluralistic initiative. So we try to be the voice for all Jews to talk about the importance of the separation between religion and government. Of course, abortion is a huge issue for us because there are no non-religious reasons to oppose abortion. And as most people in this call know, that Jewish law dictates freedom of choice, essentially. So I'm going to introduce our speakers. We have three amazing women here, and I know you guys are all so busy with the campaigns in your state, and so I really appreciate that you are taking the time tonight to be with us and let us know how we can help. Dr. Catherine Nichols has spent the last 12 years with the Arizona list to help get women elected to local, county, and state offices in Arizona. She has a master's in women's studies and a PhD in health policy, and she has decades of experience in Arizona running statewide initiatives, congressional campaigns, and her favorite work, helping progressive American women get elected and take charge of the state. So that is Catherine Nichols. We have Laura Rodriguez. She is the president of Your Right Hand and works as an independent contractor offering services to nonprofits. She currently serves as the Florida State Policy Advocate for the National Council for Jewish Women, chair of Pro-Truth Florida, which is an NCJW campaign to help expose fake clinics. She is the chair of the Courts Matter Florida Coalition and is a past president and is on the current board of the Miami section of National Council for Jewish Women. And we have Dr. Lauren Bean. Lauren is a pediatrician practicing in the Cleveland area. She is a co-founder and executive director of Ohio Physician for Reproductive Rights. She's now serving as an executive committee member of Ohioans United for Reproductive Rights and the broad coalition leading the campaign to enshrine reproductive freedom in the Ohio Constitution. Dr. Bean is working diligently towards protecting reproductive freedoms for her patients and for all Ohioans. Welcome. Thank you very much, all of you, for being here. And I'm going to begin. I'm basically going to ask the same questions to everyone, and I'm going to begin with Kathy Nichols. Kathy, can you tell us what is the current law about abortion in Arizona, and if there's a current court case, if you can tell us about that?
Sure. So like most places in the United States, Arizona, it's a moving target. So when Dobbs was overturned, we actually went to a complete ban because we had no idea what laws were on the books. Because we had a 15-week ban that the legislature had approved and signed in March of 2022. But that 15-week ban had a caveat that if Roe was overturned, we would go back to 1864 and the Civil War law. So nobody knew what was happening. And there was a conversation back and forth. And basically, in October, the decision was made through a court case with Planned Parenthood and the Tucson County Attorney that it be the law of the land, the 15-week ban that had been put in place in 2022, because there had been so many years of laws since then. But we just heard on August 22nd, so 3 weeks ago, that we are now going to have that case reconsidered by the Supreme Court. So we could be in December going back to a total ban. So that's in a nutshell. There's a lot of other things. I would also point out that even with the 15-week ban, we also have 40 trap laws on the books. Everything from notarized parental consent to prohibition of telemedicine to a 24-hour waiting period and a mandatory ultrasound, and all of these things make it very difficult. So even the 15-week ban comes with a lot of baggage.
Wow. So not a safe state, definitely not a safe state. Can you give us an overview of the campaign? Tell us about the coalition, what the next steps are, and what everyone here wants to know is how we can help. And,
Okay.
and I ask all of you, I know you probably all want money and you can all put the links in the chat of how to donate, but also how we can help other than that.
Okay, so because of the situation that was going on, a group of people who have worked to get progressive, to change abortion laws in the state gathered. And so it's ACLU Arizona, it's Planned Parenthood Arizona, it's NARAL, it's Affirm, who is our Title 10 organization, Arizona List. And we started meeting almost a year ago now in talking about how we could respond. We were joined more recently by Healthcare Rising. And so together as organizations, we filed actually our official final language yesterday.
Wow.
So our petitions are right now, I have had about 20 emails just in the last 2 hours of how it's going to look on the piece of paper. But we are that close. So we are starting to do trainings. In fact, after this call, because it's only 4:30 in Arizona, we will be doing another training tonight of training the trainers to get ready to teach people how to collect signatures. So that's where we are in the process. Yes, we have a big hurdle. The estimate is somewhere between $30 to $45 million for the campaign. I'm sure that you all are familiar with those kinds of numbers. Arizona List is a small grassroots member-based organization that helps to get progressive women who are committed to reproductive rights elected to public office. So those numbers look overwhelming to us, but we have dedicated our staff to moving this forward. And we feel like if everybody does that between time and treasure, we're going to be able to make this happen.
So you're saying how much money have you already raised?
It's still a moving target. We're in the process of raising the funds right now. Our first donor briefing is a week from today. To get, we have enough to start the paid signature process, and that's about it.
Okay. Can you talk to us, and this is what we really, like I said, what we really all want to know, are all the different ways that people, how can people who live in Arizona help? How can people from around the country help?
So if you live in Arizona, obviously you can sign up for trainings. If you write to arizonalist.org, I think someone from my team is on and we'll jump it in the chat, but we are doing trainings. We're doing 3 trainings next week. We'll be doing multiple trainings. We need to collect, and this is where it gets scary for us. The number of signatures you need is 15% of the people who voted in the last gubernatorial race. And we had a doozy of a gubernatorial race last time. So we actually need to collect more signatures than ever in the history of the state, which for us is somewhere around 700,000 signatures. And obviously the volunteer signatures are the best. And so we really want to have a strong movement for volunteer signatures. We did have an effort a year ago, right after Dobbs, where people tried to get something onto the November 2022 ballot. It didn't work, but we did manage to collect almost 200,000 signatures that time. So we're hoping that we can repeat that. That was in 7 weeks. This will be in 7 months. So we're pretty sure that we're going to have that energy. But if you would like to sign up, we would love to have you join us. If you are out of state, think about wintering in Arizona. We have great winters and it's a wonderful time to come and do signature gathering. No, but seriously, everybody can use resources. This is really going to take a lot. Basically, we need 1 out of every 5 voters in the state to sign this petition, just to give you a rough idea.
Let me ask you, let's say I do want to come to Arizona and collect signatures. Am I allowed to do that? Do you have to be an Arizona registered voter to collect?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's a little bit technically, yes, you do have to be a registered Arizona voter. So it would be a problem if you were registered in some other place. However, there are a lot of other support things that can be done to help a campaign. As you know, this is going to take a lot of energy, and you can be sitting at the table and directing folks to sign to an Arizonan who's sitting there. We have a lot of events in the winter, a lot of fairs, a lot of parades and things, because it's the height for us of signature gathering time. So we hope that folks will come and help us out.
Okay. Now, for example, I know in Michigan, we had a lot of people from out of state who were doing data entry for us, or they were helping do phone banking for us. Are there any things that we can do
Absolutely.
to support you from across the country?
Yes. And I think that we will get those more in gear as we get a little further along. We are, as some of you have been in this already, we are at the moment where we're just creating as fast as we can, but we will definitely have phone bank opportunities and things like that people can contribute to from around this country.
Okay. I want to point out that I mentioned before that we have in the room the 2 top signature collectors from Michigan are in the room, and she has offered, you should have somebody write down, we can send it to you later, that they're offering to help give you some ideas. They definitely had a lot of very creative ideas of how they got signatures. I think they collected 15,000. They can correct me in the chat if I'm wrong, but a lot. They were just just the 2 of them. So
well, we are all about not recreating the wheel. We would love to learn from people's experience.
Yeah, we did a lot of, we learned a lot in Michigan from doing it, for sure. Is there any other way that you haven't said yet that people from out of state can help?
At this juncture, I think that you could win in Ohio. That would be helpful. The momentum is really important. So I think, for us, we're watching Ohio really carefully, because we know that if things don't go well in Ohio, it'll make it dicier for us. So we want you to make it through there.
So when do you expect this to be on the ballot in Arizona?
November of 2024. We have to turn in our petitions July 3rd. And then our election is November 2024.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to add before I move on to Laura?
I think that's it.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Lauren wrote in the chat, we have to win. Yeah, we agree with you completely. Laura, can you tell us what the current law is in Florida?
Oh, the current law in Florida, similar to elsewhere, is a 15-week ban. Patients have to make appointments prior. They have to go to 2 appointments, a counseling appointment, and then 24 hours, after 24 hours, they have to return for the procedure. Medicaid coverage is banned, except in certain circumstances. There are no exceptions for rape. If you're a minor, you must get parental consent or judicial judicial bypass. There are all kinds of unnecessary regulations that are enforced to shutter abortion clinics, etc. We know in Florida that over almost 70% of voters, after polls have been taken, are in support of a person's right to choose. The language that we've used is basically, keeping politicians out of our personal decisions. As you might know, the last legislative session, a 6-week ban was passed. Currently, there is a case against the state against the 15-week ban. If that the Supreme Court of Florida has already heard oral arguments on that. If they uphold that, the 6-week ban will go into effect 30 days later. The Supreme Court heard oral arguments last Friday. They hand down their decisions on Thursdays at 11 o'clock. So no one is sleeping tonight or next Wednesday night. We do anticipate that they will uphold that 15-week ban, which will then, as I said, trigger the 6-week ban. The 6-week ban also included $25 million to the Florida Care Network, which supports CPCs around the state. That has already begun, regardless of they sort of enacted part of the law before the whole thing. So we're fighting against that.
I'm not sure if everyone knows what CPCs are. Can you?
Sure. A CPC is a nice way of saying it is a crisis pregnancy center. It's a nice way of saying an anti-abortion pregnancy center. These clinics masquerade as facilities where people can receive objective medical care, objective counseling, maybe an abortion when they actually do not provide abortions. They are generally supported by a religious donor or a church. They actually, it's a bait and switch. Their websites look like, if you type in abortion or whatever, you may get to one of their websites and it will look like you could go there. At first, it will look like you could go there and get that kind of care, but in fact, you cannot. And you'll get there and they'll do an ultrasound and they'll, try to sign you up for all kinds of freebies if you keep the baby, etc. They're basically there to dissuade you from seeking the care that is probably best for you, and or deciding what you need to decide for yourself at that point in time.
And your state has already approved state funding to go.
Yes, they've been getting state funding since the early 2000s. This is a huge increase. They were getting $4.5 million. Now they're going to get $25 million. It's astronomical.
Yeah, we used to have that in Michigan, and then that Governor Whitmer ended the state funding for CPCs. but I realize you have a different governor.
We have a different situation. different, yeah.
Can you please give us an overview of the Florida Ballot Initiative and talk to us about who's in your coalition?
Sure. So the Florida Ballot Initiative started, I mean, the planning and the thinking about it started while the 15-week ban was being bantered about in the legislature. So the primary the primary organizations are Planned Parenthood, ACLU, SEIU, Women's Voices of Southwest Florida, the Florida Women's Freedom Coalition, and Florida Rising. There are, however, organizations like the National Council of Jewish Women, the Reform Action Center of Florida, which is a progressive arm of the Reform Jewish movement, the Unitarian Universalist Church, countless other faith organizations are part of this coalition. The League of Women Voters, Florida Now. It's an amazing, amazing group of people that are fighting this. We launched our campaign on May 10th. Our goal for our volunteer signature collection is 300,000. We are already 43% of the way there in only this few number of months. We have collected over 600,000 petitions. We need 891,500 and something. So we really need, that means we need to collect like 1.2 million. We've reached the threshold for the Supreme Court to review the language. But we have to wait until, it goes to one person and the next letter, whatever. So we're waiting on that. We're very confident in the language that we have. It meets all the standards necessary to pass the review of the Supreme Court. We have a system of hubs throughout the state. I'm actually the manager of the hubs. We have community and regional hubs where volunteers can go and pick up blank petitions, drop off completed ones. The campaign has a FedEx account where the hubs use that number to mail in the completed petitions once a week. We try to have all those completed petitions in within a week. That's a campaign goal. We need to have, unlike Arizona, we need to have all of our petitions into the state by February. Our election's also obviously in November 2024. So you guys have a little extra time. But we're confident that we're going to get there. And if we get on the ballot, we know we're going to win.
Now, if I understand correctly, you guys do one thing quite a bit different than we did in Michigan, in that people can photocopy, can print off the petition from their home computer and mail it in. Is
Yes,
that okay?
that's correct.
Can you?
They can't fill it out online, but they can. It has to be a piece of paper, so they can print it out, fill it out, and mail it in.
So
they can bring it to a hub, and the hub will send it in.
So your signatures do not have to be witnessed.
No.
They can be, right. So
they do not have to be witnessed.
So one thing that we did try and do already was we had a campaign where we tried to get people to contact everyone they knew in Florida with the link of how to print it. Can you please talk to us about any ways that start with if people are in Florida, how they can help you, and if people do not live in Florida, how they can help you?
Well, I'll repeat what you said. If you're not in Florida, if you're in Zimbabwe, if you have $1, we'll take it. So there's that. If you're in Florida, I did put the link in there, and Katie, thank you for putting it in again. You can volunteer. We have regular volunteer petition collection trainings every Saturday at 11. If you want to open up a hub, we have trainings every other Thursday at 5 p.m., which I do. I used to do the volunteer one also. So you can volunteer to be and our hubs are actually anything from someone's private home to a local bookstore, to a synagogue, to pop-ups at Starbucks on the sidewalk. We have all different kinds of places where people are just sitting, or collecting the petitions and making sure they're blank ones that are available to people. If you're not in Florida, making anybody that we have a lot of snowbirds out there that may actually be registered Florida voters. Maybe not, they might not be thinking about it, but they obviously could complete the petition. We also want to encourage people to understand that if Florida shuts down, the entire South shuts down, and the rest of the country just can't handle the influx of clients. The people don't have the money to travel. Our independent providers here are already starting to segue toward how are they going to help their clients go out of town, get the kind of that kind of stuff. And then I would also say, write letters to your editor, write letters to your legislators, inform them of what the catastrophic consequences of losing this kind of healthcare would mean to our country, and the dangerous environment that's in Florida politically, and how easily it can and could spread, and probably is already spreading throughout the country.
And okay, and what about like actual, time spent volunteering? Is there any way to volunteer virtually? Do you need text bankers, phone bankers, data?
We do have phone banks set up. I have access to it. I'm not that familiar with it. But we do have those kind of opportunities, and I will get more information about it. And if people want to do that, I'm sure there's opportunities there.
Okay. If you think of any other ways that people can volunteer from across the country, then please, during the question and answer period, we'll come back to you.
I will Slack my people and ask them about that stuff.
Yeah. Any ways that they can help. Like I said, data entry, text banking, helping run your trainings virtually. Like we have some very experienced people who can help run trainings too. So, anything you can think of that we can do to help. We have 74 people on here who came out to find out how they can help.
Right.
So, okay. Is there anything else before I move on to Dr. Bean?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Bean, thank you. Can you tell us what the current laws are in Ohio?
Sure. Thank you again so much for having me. This is a great discussion. So currently we are lucky enough in Ohio to be functioning under the pre-Dobbs law. After the Dobbs decision, a trigger ban went into effect in Ohio that made abortion illegal at the point at which cardiac activity can be detected in via ultrasound, which usually happens at around 6 weeks of pregnancy or approximately 2 weeks after a missed period. And that was a disaster. We had, we were existing under that law for 11 weeks until Jesse Hill, who's an attorney in Ohio, who is a reproductive rights warrior and often works with the ACLU and the Repro groups, argued in a lower court in our state that law was unconstitutional based on a previous ruling relating to healthcare mandates during the Obamacare time, like about 10 years ago. And so that was wonderful. So after 11 weeks of the 6-week ban, we went back to functioning under the pre-Dobbs law, which permits abortion up until 21 weeks and 6 days. So just at 22 weeks. So it's been like, as far as a practicing medicine standpoint, patients getting access to care since October of 2022, things have been overall okay in Ohio. There's a lot of confusion. So I've encountered people who had tried to get abortions out of the state in Ohio because they thought it was illegal in Ohio, and then ended up finding out that they actually could have gotten one in Ohio and had delayed care. And so, it's certainly not a clean situation, but thankfully we've been able to continue to provide care for our patients. However, so that injunction, the argument that Jesse Hill successfully made back in October of 2022 is a temporary injunction. And at any point, the Ohio Supreme Court, which is stacked heavily with known anti-choice judges, all Catholic, no, it doesn't matter, but every single one of them on the Ohio Supreme Court, that court could easily repeal that stay, and then we would go back to the 6-week ban. And so that hasn't happened. I think probably in part because if it did, it would certainly fuel our efforts towards getting this amendment passed. Not that we would ever want that, but it would really bring the people out again. So that has not happened yet, but it could.
Yeah, and actually here, when we were doing our campaign is when Roe fell, and it definitely mobilized a lot of people. Even though we'd been working on the campaign already for quite a while before Roe fell, it definitely mobilizes. We don't want them to be mobilized that way, however.
No, you don't, right? Yeah.
Can you give us an overview of the ballot and of your campaign? Who's in the coalition and what are the next steps?
Yeah. So we have so our campaign is led by an executive committee that includes 7 organizations. And then we have that committee is leading a large coalition that has a lot of organizations in it. So the campaign executive committee includes the organization that I represent, Ohio Physicians for Reproductive Rights, along with the ACLU, Planned Parenthood, New Voices for Reproductive Justice, URGE, Preterm Cleveland, which is our abortion clinic in Cleveland, Ohio Women's Alliance, and Abortion Fund of Ohio. And over the past year and a half, we've assembled a really enormous coalition. When this was all starting out, we were definitely building the plane while we were flying it. We still are. But it was really obvious a year ago that we were in that situation. And so we were just trying to bring everybody who could come with us. And so our group, Ohio Physicians for Reproductive Rights, really focused on mobilizing and connecting a lot of, so we tried to get endorsements from medical societies, which we thought was a unique way that we could help. So we have the Ohio chapter of ACOG, American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, Ohio Academy of Ohio chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics. So these kinds of bigger organizations. And then we also were able to connect with a lot of much smaller, but very mighty grassroots groups that had been doing all sorts of work in the state and were already organized and ready to go, boots on the ground, joined in with us. We also tapped into a lot of religious and cultural communities. So there's a pretty awesome group called Faith Choice Ohio, Catholics for Choice, the National Council of Jewish Women, Unitarian Universalists, lots of different religious organizations. And so we brought together a lot of, groups of different sizes. And then in that, we joined with a huge coalition of the large reproductive rights partners, and came together to do the ballot language and present this together. So I've been really viewing this as just we are Ohio. Ohioans United for Reproductive Rights. Our coalition is a coalition of Ohioans. I mean, this is about as grassroots as is humanly possible, and we really represent everyone, from every, and this is a nonpartisan issue. It's a human rights issue. We have a very nonpartisan campaign, and we know that we need to communicate and connect with everybody, because this is something that affects everybody, and that's how we're going to be able to be successful in November. And that's, I think, reflected in our huge coalition.
So I'm sure you need money. In addition to money, in addition to money, how can people help if they live in Ohio? How can people help if they don't live in Ohio? And keep in mind, there are a lot of people on this call who live right at the border of Michigan and Ohio. So keep that in mind too.
Yeah, totally. The best ways to stay in the loop and hear about opportunities to help in a variety of ways are going to Ohioans United for Reproductive Rights.com or .win or OURR .win. I think I put the link in there. That is a great place to sign up for our emails. And it is also where you can go to donate. That money goes straight into the Political Action Committee of Ohioans United for Reproductive Rights. And through our emails, we provide information that might be helpful to let people know when there's opportunities to volunteer. Other places I think that's helpful to stay in the loop is on social media. So Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Our handle is at OURR 2023. And we post a lot there relating to volunteer opportunities, letting people know what's happening when, ways people can volunteer. So we have a huge field team that has been over the last couple of weeks really ramping up in mobilization efforts, going knocking door to door. And so if you sign up for the emails, you follow us on social media, you might find opportunities if you're if you're in Toledo, that's not that far from Ohio, or if you're in Ohio, that would be a really helpful way. And I think somebody had mentioned, writing. So this is a way that our group, Ohio Physicians for Reproductive Rights, has been helpful, is that we think we've been helpful is we spend a lot of time writing letters to the editor, writing op-eds, reaching out to our family, friends, connections, people that, it doesn't have to be perfect what you're writing, but somebody who has something to say. And, these stories are in the news constantly. And so if you and your friends just come up with a plan of responding with an LTE every time you see an article that's relevant to what's going on in any of our states here that are affected by, these bans and are doing ballot initiatives, I think that would be great. Other ways, I know there's going to be, so there are text banks, call banks, postcard writing, and all of that I think will be communicated primarily through social media and the email lists. And yeah, I think that those are sort of the main things.
Okay, so you do have phone banks and text banks and postcards, which are all things that people from out of state can help.
Yeah.
And again, if you think of any additional things that are, but like some people aren't comfortable doing phone banking, if there are any behind the scenes kinds of things that any of you can use help with. Again, I keep saying data entry just because I had all of my shy friends from across the country helping with data entry, and that did save us a lot of money by now. If you have any needs for anything like that, then please let us know.
And some other things I'll think of that I know that we don't need this anymore, but might come up in other states. Like verifying signatures, depending on how that works or who is verifying your signatures. Like when we were collecting signatures, we had a large volunteer effort, but we also had a large paid effort. And actually for us, the company that did the paid effort went through and verified all of the volunteer signatures too. So we didn't actually need people to verify signatures, but I know that some places will need that sort of thing. That I don't know, there's sort of, and it's a, you know, something that you can do at home and you don't have to call people. And like, I totally get it. A lot of people, before all of this, I was a total introvert. And I mean, I'm still an introvert, but I was like a hermit, and I never would have imagined going out and like randomly calling somebody and asking them like, oh, have you heard about this? Do you want to donate money? That's like totally not my comfort zone, but, and I get that. So there are ways to help in that capacity, especially if you're in the state. And then sharing on social media, you know, I mean, I think that like we really generated a lot of traction just by people sharing our posts on social media, sharing articles that were relevant. And so the more that you share with your family and friends, you know, if everybody does that, that helps this, you know, grassroots dissemination of information. And that is all helpful.
Laura, you just, oh, I'm sorry, before I go on, anything else to add, Dr. Bean?
I don't think so. I think that, you know, we are really grateful for the support and, you know, interest of everybody in the different states. And we are doing our absolute best here in Ohio, and we will win. I really do see this as there is no possibility that we are not winning. We have to win this, not just because of Ohio, because of all of the states that are doing the same thing in 2024. And, you know, I just, you know, I'm very grateful for the work of everyone here, because it is something that we are, you know, we're all in this together, and we're gonna get through this and make things better for the people in our country.
Now, Laura, you wrote in about curing signatures in Arizona. Is that a way that is that something volunteers can also help you with curing signatures?
Not unless you're physically here, because we have to look at the physical paper. But we are in the hubs, and people are curing signatures, and we are getting cooperation from our SOEs about getting the lists of ones that were rejected. I don't know about in Ohio and Arizona and some other states. One of the challenges that we have financially, sorry to go back to the dollars, every district in Florida now charges a different amount to verify each petition. So it used to be a standard of 10 cents per petition. Now it's anywhere from 10 cents to $4. And when you consider that that in order for us to get to the number that we need to really collect 1.2 million, because a lot of those signatures, a lot of them are going to get tossed. It's the wild southeast of of fees.
See that the state charges you to verify?
Each supervisor of election in each voting district charges per petition that they are verified.
That's appalling.
Yeah.
It's awful.
Yeah.
Oh,
And the fact that it's not even a standard amount anymore, and that only happened because of our Amendment 4, where, you know, people could get their voting rights, returning citizens could get their voting rights back. So then that, you know, the legislator said, well, we can't have people running willy-nilly having ballot initiatives, so
Wow.
let's make it more difficult.
So I'm going to ask you one more question, Laura, and I know we have questions from the audience, so I'll try and be quick, and then I have one more question for you too, Kathy. Quite a few people have expressed to me in personal conversations that they're concerned that even if it passes in Florida, that the governor and the legislature is going to find some way of not implementing it, similar to the. So can you talk to us?
When I saw that question at the very beginning of our evening together, I slacked my people and he can't do anything. He can't, because he'd have to do it after the 2024 election. So he can't he'd have to do it afterward. And it would be really hard, and I mean really difficult, to go against the populace after they voted on the amendment and said, yes, this is what we want in the state of Florida. And who knows where he's going to be then anyway, but basically they would probably have to go through a whole other ballot initiative to get that, what we do, like, gone.
Right. Of course, that's what happened with the re-enfranchising formerly incarcerated, that it
Right.
passed and he still managed to get it not to be implemented.
And
But-
so yeah, he basically he would have to change the voter thresholds, which he can't do before 2024
Okay.
in our
And-
state.
And I have one more question for you, Kathy, and then I'm going to pass it on to Paul Golan to ask questions from the audience. I know the other states mentioned the role that faith groups have had in their campaign. Have faith groups had a role in your campaign? And
Yes,
can you
and
talk about that?
sure. So, but first to say, we did actually pass in 1998 the Voter Protection Act in Arizona that says the legislature has to implement initiatives. And we had to do that because they were simply not implementing initiatives. So we had to pass an initiative to say that you have to implement initiatives. Anyway, but in the press conference that we have next week, we will have a speaker from the Unitarian Universalist Church. We have members of the National Council of Jewish Women who have been participating in the wider coalition. So there are other faith leaders that have been involved. I love the idea of faith choice. I think that sounds like a great name. But we do have members of different organizations. And in fact, the Unitarian Universalists have a storytelling cooperative to share stories about abortion from a faith-based perspective.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I will say that here in Michigan, the faith communities played a huge role. And that was that we had Catholics for Choice, the UU, we had a huge Hindu contingency, a lot of Jewish organizations, United Church of Christ. I mean, we definitely leaned on the faith community. I am going to pass it on to Paul Golan, our executive director, to ask any questions from the attendees.
From the chat. Yeah, so there were a couple that came in specifically to Florida. One was, do we have to get a minimum of petitions from each county, i.e. can most of our petitions come from Palm Beach, Broward, and Miami-Dade counties? And I'll ask the other Florida-specific question at the same time. I don't understand how petitions can be signed and turned in if the Supreme Court has still not approved the language.
So the first question, we have the percentage of the signatures is based upon how many voters were in the last national election. So each district has a different percentage of petitions that we need against how many people voted. The second part of the question is that the Supreme Court in our state, the Supreme Court won't review the language until we've hit a threshold of a certain number of signatures. So we have to sort of prove our stuff before they're ever going to even consider it.
So if I understand correctly, then there's a difference between having your petition language approved versus the language that will actually appear on the ballot.
No, the ballot. No, they are approving the ballot initiative language. The petition language, the Supreme Court doesn't need to review. It's the ballot. In order for them to read the ballot summary and the ballot language itself, we had to hit a certain threshold of signatures.
Okay, and this one I don't know if I quite follow, but maybe you will understand. This summer, people from Michigan traveled south, started making donations to, quote, offset what they spent in red areas. Would Florida pro-choice be a suitable place for donations from travelers? Is that?
I don't know. I mean, I understand the emotional desire. I'm spending money in a red state. I'm spending, the state is getting money because I'm traveling there, but I don't agree with what they're doing. So I want to participate and help the campaign to support you know, abortion rights. I get the sentiment, and I think that's if you are traveling to a red state and you want to support Floridians, if you're coming to Florida and you want to, you know, contribute to our campaign, that's awesome. Go on the website and contribute. Like I said, even $1. I mean, I get the sentiment. I think it's awesome.
Great. And then a kind of a bigger picture question that I really like that Katie wrote in is, why should what happens in Arizona, Florida, and Ohio matter to people across the country? So I guess that's for everybody.
Well, I'm still off mute, so, but like I said before, if it goes away in Florida, it becomes a really big problem for the entire south of the United States. And then it only sends a message to the rest of the states. Oh, well, we can get away with this. You know, we can impose these kind of restrictions on people. And I think it's just going to create a terrible nightmare for healthcare for people.
And I just want to say, you know, the other side had the long game. It took them 50 years to overturn Roe. And we have to understand that when you break something, it takes a lot longer to put it back together again. And so every step that we take, because, you know, these are crucial first steps. And so it was important, even though, like somebody pointed out, Kansas, they fought back and, you know, and it hasn't been as effective as they had hoped that no vote would be. But every one of these steps forward will put us back. And I think what it has done, which is really critical for the whole country, is it's changed the language. I mean, we went from not being able to even say the word abortion to having every single night on the nightly news conversations about how abortion is healthcare. And I think when we look back on it, you know, I've heard people say that the Republicans, and if you're in a nonpartisan race like Ohio, the folks that were trying to overturn Roe are sort of like the dog that bit the bus. They're really happy that they did it, but I don't think they knew what they really opened up as a chain of events that is shifting a whole conversation in the nation now.
Yeah, absolutely. And activating people who were never, like, I was never involved in this before summer of 2022, and here I am, you know, doing this now. And so you have so many people like me that were unfortunately not involved before and now have realized that this is something that we must be involved in, and that momentum is palpable. So yeah, everything that happens in these states, that we must keep that momentum moving to, you know, make sure that we're sending the message that, you know, the government should not be getting involved in these decisions. These are people's personal decisions, and that applies to all people everywhere.
Great. And another question that came in is, how does the polling look in Ohio? What else is on the ballot that might help bring out voters?
Great question. So the polling in Ohio, pretty consistently, like across, I think, most of the United States. In Ohio, about 58, 59% or so of people polled support, you know, constitutional protections for reproductive freedom. And so we are just hoping that we can, you know, keep that where it is. Thankfully, we need 50%, a simple majority, in order to get our amendment passed. There was an effort by our anti-choice opposition, led by our very own Secretary of State, Frank LaRose, who's terrible, to make it that a 60% threshold. Thankfully, that failed. But the polling is in our favor. And then as far as other things that are on the ballot in 2023, recreational use of marijuana is on the ballot in Ohio. Both that and our initiative are yes votes. So I think that the marijuana issue is an interesting one. It doesn't always line up exactly with the pro-choice movements, but I do think that will kind of, I think both of our issues are going to help each other. Honestly, I think that our issue is probably going to help the marijuana initiative as well. And so I support both. So I'm hoping that everybody else does too. But those are the main things. And then otherwise in our state, it's mostly local elections, school boards, that sort of thing. All of the huge elections for candidates in Ohio are coming up in 2024.
Okay, Noe?
I want to go back to something that was in the chat for a moment about can Canadians donate. I actually thought that non-citizens are not allowed to donate to US political campaigns. I could be wrong, but Laura, are you like, does anyone else have clarity about that, about non-citizens but contributing money?
I mean, I'll double check, but from what I understand,
I know in Ohio, for our ballot issue packs, I'm pretty sure you have to be a citizen or a United States corporation, but I don't know how it applies to like C4s and that kind of thing. And it might be state dependent, but.
I will find out for sure. I
Thank
could
you.
be totally wrong.
Thank you. So could you each talk for a moment? Well, I don't know if you're all able to talk about this, but if you can, why is this a Jewish issue?
Since I'm with the National Council of Jewish Women, I'll take my stab. It's a core Jewish value that a woman's life comes before that of the unborn child. In Judaism, personhood is not achieved until the first breath is taken. So there are, I mean, it starts with a text in Exodus where a woman miscarries because a person causes her to fall, and it becomes a financial burden to the husband. It has nothing to do with that the baby died or anything. It's a financial burden. It's not anything about capital crime or anything like that. So in Judaism, it really is a personal decision. There, I will put in the chat some texts that if you want to see further about these things, there are countless texts by different scholars following different streams of Judaism about where each stream of Judaism kind of falls on this issue. So you'll find that some will say, if it just doesn't fit in your life right now because it's going to cause your family a burden, then that's between you, your God, your rabbi, your doctor, your family. There's that, and then there's more restrictive kind of views about it. But the bottom line in Judaism is that the mother's life comes before that of the unborn child or the fetus.
And I would just add that if you have not seen the film Under God, and under G-D, it's showing now on public television. It's accessible if you have streaming PBS, but it is an amazing 25-minute documentary about the use of the Religious Freedom Act in the state of Indiana to defend Judaism, and it's actually an interfaith effort with the Muslim communities, rights to religious freedom to fight the abortion ban in Indiana. And it's an excellent documentary and well worth seeing. And it gives a sort of holistic perspective of Jewish law around abortion.
Thank you. I also, by the way, did get an answer that someone texted me, which I believe might be accurate, unless Laura, you found it differently, that you don't need to be a citizen to donate to a political campaign, but you have to be a permanent US resident, like a green card holder. However, you can donate to a nonprofit. Like, for example, if you live in Canada, you could donate to NCJW to go
Okay,
towards
so you can donate.
right, but not, you can't go donate directly to the campaign, but so if you live in another country, if you're a non-citizen and a non-green card holder and you want to contribute to one of the nonprofits that's supporting the effort, as opposed to directly to the campaign. Thank you for that answer, Julie. Dr. Bean, do you have any final words?
So I shouldn't comment, I am not Jewish. I have an incredible respect for the Jewish people, and anytime I hear that explanation, it just resonates so much for me as an individual, as a mother, as a physician, that, you know, of course we should be prioritizing the life of the mother. And it just, I don't know, it just feels so wrong to do otherwise. And so, you know, other than that, I don't have much else I, you know, feel I need to say, but I do feel strongly that most people agree with that sentiment. Even if, other religions can sometimes make things confusing. In just conversations I've had, you know, most people agree. So I'm hoping that those people also do come out to the polls and vote in our states.
So we are out of time. I do want to say to all of the participants that we will be sending you an email with all the links of how to get involved and everything in the next few days. To the panelists, if you think of any other ways that people from around the country can help you, please send, you know, let me or Katie know so we can include that. If you're interested in getting involved with Jews for a Secular Democracy, if you live in Michigan, please contact me. I'm the Michigan director. If you live outside of Michigan, please contact Katie. And thank you so very much for everybody, for your evening, for your time. Thank you so much to our amazing panelists. And we appreciate your help, and we're here to help you. Thank you.